but along with that comes what I call the soulmate myth. And the soulmate myth is this, is that there is one person for one person, right? You were created by God or the gods or fate or whatever religious, thing you subscribe to eventually find your perfect mate. You are half a person. Yes. Until you find your soulmate.
You complete me.
You complete me. That's exactly where that comes from. And, confession time. You want to know? I used to do Shakespearean acting, and I have actually played the lead role in Macbeth.
Wow! So you got your head chopped off?
That. Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, by Macbeth. Yeah.
The stimulus checks are here, so I'm relaunching Womanies Volume 4, which has over 250 hours of bonus content. I'm also relaunching Womanies Audio, which is less than half the price of the video version. Link in description.
So tell me why, well, I guess answer two questions for me. Why do men and women alike, why are we so enamored? Why are we so taken by the romanticized idea of a soulmate? And why can't we really see the forest through the trees and understand that there's no such thing as a soulmate?
It's funny because I've been answering this question a lot lately, especially when it comes to the difference between monogamy and polyandry or polygamy. I've been writing a couple of actually I wrote 2 essays based on what I call the new polyandry, right? And you might say, well, what does that have to do with this? Well, the thing is like when there's different sexual strategies, right? If you're looking at like polygamy, polyandry, and monogamy, okay?
Right.
When you have to understand that the soulmate myth is integral to monogamy as a sexual strategy, a societal sexual strategy. I think it was Jordan Peterson who was saying something to the effect of it's he coined, maybe he didn't coin the term, but it's enforced monogamy is what he calls it.
That's exactly what he calls it.
And of course he did that because he knew it was going to stir the shit pot, and he was going to get a free show with Joe Rogan for doing something like that, so we could clear things up. Right. But I did understand what he was talking about, and I knew people were going to take that the wrong way. Because it seems like he's advocating for some sort of enforcement of like forcing women to marry men that they don't want to marry.
Yes.
Well, that's not what he was getting after. It's like ever since we have been in a post-agrarian social, or we get into agrarianism, we get into industrial revolution, all that kind of stuff. When you go through like the different ages of sort of technology for mankind, those shifts have always accompanying those shifts is how we go about marrying, how we go about reproducing. And for a very long time, it's been one man, one woman. And that has been the standards ever since we stopped living in hunter-gatherer tribes and we started living on farms, and we started having, staying in one place instead of being nomads and moving around all the time. And so what happened along with that, so we've gone from polygamy, like say Old Testament days, like Abraham had Sarah and his other wife and his concubines and everything, and nobody bats an eye at that, right? Because that was the tradition of that time. Well, our traditions of this time is one man and one woman. At least that's what it has been up until, I would argue, the sexual revolution. I think things are definitely changing now. I mean, it's been about but little over 50 years since the sexual revolution.
Almost 60 years.
This is a radical shift, but that's another point. But the thing is like when we move into monogamy as our standard and enforced monogamy, socially enforced monogamy. Let's just be clear here. I'm not suggesting there is enforced monogamy, really. I mean, if you think about it, like if you look in the caste system for India and prearranged marriages and things like that, that would be enforced monogamy. But socially enforced, meaning that it is the socially acceptable, normal thing to do is to find one woman, settle down with her, have kids, start a nuclear family, and retire in Florida and live happily ever after. Okay, that's the monogamous. That's what the advertising is, right? That's what you get on the brochure,
right?
Exactly. And so, along with monogamy comes a lot of folklore. There has to be some way. We have to have stories to sell that sexual strategy. And one of those stories is, you know, the Prince Charming and you know, saves the princess, and they get married and they live happily ever after. The prince doesn't marry, you know, 6 girls and then has 12 more concubines and has his harem, and that's not the end of the story. That's not romantic, right? It has to be one man, one woman. The man is the dominant masculine, the woman is the submissive damsel, okay? And so as part of that, what we've seen, I think really the idea of a soulmate, the sort of the earliest inclinations of a soulmate was really created around the time, would say like the Renaissance or like maybe medieval times, where and this is in Western traditions. Obviously, there's other cultural narratives that actually hold up the same thing.
Right.
But what it is courtly love. It's one man, one woman. A man has to qualify and prove his love to her, and there is something magical and something spiritual to it. Even in a religious context, women used to be like this. It used to be there was one guy. It was only one. He's the one, and you can see sort of variations of this folklore throughout our stories in like these periods of time that we romanticize about. So if you look at like Shakespeare, for example, Shakespeare is
very good examples.
Shakespeare is fantastic because I think that if you go back and confession time. You want to know? I used to do Shakespearean acting, and I have actually played the lead role in Macbeth.
Wow! So you got your head chopped off?
That. Yeah, I did actually.
Awesome.
by Macbeth. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. That was a fantastic.
Of course. Man. Everybody wants to be Macbeth so they can get their head chopped off.
Yeah. Well, you know that play is cursed, right?
Of course. And Macbeth is also dark triad. He is very Machiavellian.
I'm glad you said that. That's actually what I was leading up to is if you want to learn old school conventional masculinity and you want to learn where we get these romanticized notions from, go back to Shakespeare and look at some of the stuff, because he will describe, like there's a dark triad kind of thing. He also does sort of the Beauty and the Beast narrative, where it's like the woman tames the savage guy who could never be married and who's going to be this bachelor, committed bachelor for life. And because of her uniquely feminine qualities, she just tames him and turns him into, now he's gone from being this deplorable bachelor to being this dedicated husband because of her. And it's the same story that we hear in pretty much every romantic comedy.
There you go.
But along with that comes what I call the soulmate myth. And the soulmate myth is that there is one person for one person, right? You were created by God or the gods or fate or whatever religious, thing you subscribe to eventually find your perfect mate. You are half a person until you find your soulmate.
You complete me.
You complete me. That's exactly where that comes from. And it's interesting because like when we talk about soulmates today, we think of them in terms of what we hear on Oprah or what we hear on movies. Romantic comedies is a great one. But whenever I hear and I hate to say this because I think since the sexual revolution and since we have decided that we want to treat our boys as if they're girls and raise them in a pro-feminine, feminine primary social order to make them believe that being more feminine is correct. Since we've done that, I've heard more and more men say, I think she's the one, or I thought I had a soulmate, or I thought she was, and honestly, this is where it gets dangerous. Okay. Because prior to the sexual revolution, it was really only women who were interested in their soulmates, who were only interested in one man for one woman. And that, again, that goes along to sell the idea of a socially enforced monogamy. And so we need those tales. We need the spirituality. We need the magic thinking added to that in order to sell that sociological sexual strategy, which is monogamy. Now, how well that actually works is up for debate, and I think women and men find ways around monogamy. We still, we don't want to pretend like we want to say we're these alpha cads. We don't want to, we should just be one man for one woman, right?
Of course.
We'll still find ways around that, and women will also find ways around that too. That's why they have their plan Bs and all that other shit. So
yes.
But the magic part, the storytelling part to that is always the soulmate. It's always there's a half of you that's out there, and she completes you or you complete her. And then we get into the sexual revolution and we start feminizing our boys. And one of the ways we do that is we teach them about the soulmate. We instill those feminine magical thinking in our boys. And so now you get boys watching Disney movies. I mean, Disney is rife with this shit. And so guys pick up on this, and and now of course we have the internet, so they're all comparing notes and we're all watching all this stuff. And I think even I would say that the soulmate myth is even more pronounced today than it was when I was around, when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, ever since the sexual revolution, we have sort of inculcated the idea of a soulmate into boys, and as well as women too. I'm not going to let women off the hook here, but I think men are more focused on it right now because men have to be the initiators. But they're still, and this will finish my point here, is men since the sexual revolution, since this lost boys generation that we always talk about, they want to identify with the feminine. They want to, that's what they're taught. They're taught that, get in touch with your female side, get in touch with your femininity, you have, because they believe in this blank slate bullshit. Okay. They believe that men and women are blank slate equals, or they're functional equals. And so if that's true, then men must also believe in a soulmate, right? And men must also identify with the feminine, because society has taught them to be these horrible, chauvinistic, traditionally masculine men, right? Because the APA has told us that we're all defective. So we take that and we wrap that into the package as well. So we want to, we teach our boys to want to put women on a pedestal. We teach them to want to identify with the feminine, because they believe that the more alike they are with women, the more they are sensitive, the more they support them, the more they align themselves, the better allies they are, the more they the more alike that they can be with a woman. They believe that is a sexual strategy for them.
Interestingly enough, women are taught the same thing. The more alike you are as a man, the more masculine you are, the more attractive you will be to men.
Yeah, or you should be. Or the problem that you're not is because men are too stupid, or they've been taught by this horrible, nefarious society that makes them into these chauvinists who can't appreciate you for being a alpha female. But we can talk about that one for a while. But what I was going to say is that, so you've got these guys, these kids who grow up to be young men and who later grow up to be sort of beta providers, who believe in this soulmate myth because they were taught that the more alike and the more they can identify with the feminine, the better their chances will be to reproduce, to have a family, to do all the things that to be a good, useful beta male tool. When the time comes, of course, once women are done with the Sandbergian hypergamy plan. But so men believe in that. And that kind of gets us onto the second part that I wanted to talk about today, which is the damage that this is doing.
Get thousands of hours of content not found anywhere on patreon.com/Donovan Sharp. Link in description.